Mondi Lewis. This evening I have with me Mr. Alfred Starbatch Prospere, the St. Lucia Labour Party's endorsed candidate for Dennery South. Welcome to Chill and Chat, Mr. Prospere.
Good evening, Mondi. Thanks for having me here, and it's a great pleasure to be part of this interview.
Great. So you have been endorsed by the St. Lucia Labour Party, and right now you're in this chair getting to, well, for St. Lucians to get to know you. Tell us about Alfred Starbatch Prospere, and of course about that name, Starbatch.
Starbatch. Thank you, Mondi. Well, in Dennery, it is well known that most, if not all persons in Dennery, they are called by an alias.
Okay.
And my name came about after going to a fishing trip in Dennery when I was a very, very young boy. And we left, we went somewhere out at sea, and whilst fishing, I began to feel very, very sick. So, a few minutes after, I fell asleep in the bottom of the boat. Now I remember when I was a young boy, there was this game that you used to play with the stoppers, and it used to be called Ziggy, Zogger, Starbatch. And when that stopper or cap gets into the hole, that is when it's called Starbatch. So it's like Ziggy, Zogger, Starbatch. And because I fell asleep in the bottom of the boat, the captain of the boat called me Starbatch, and this is how I got my name.
And that has stuck with you for all these years?
For many, many years, and I think I am the only one in St. Lucia, maybe the world, who is being called by that name, Starbatch. So if you go to Dennery before I was a candidate, and you ask, who is Prospere? The first thing they would ask you is, Prospere. But once you mention Starbatch, easy.
Okay, so that means you're very well known,
very well
Starbatch.
known by that nickname, Starbatch.
Okay, and why? Why do you think, why are you such this popular figure in Dennery?
Because I have been involved from a very young age. I have been with the people doing so many things that, you know, require my involvement. And it is from sports to religion to community development. So I've been mixing with the people all the time. I've been there with them all the time. And in spite of me being a forest officer, I've always been there from the beginning up to this time.
Okay,
so the people that know me as that person who has always been a man fully involved in the community of Dennery South.
So you just glided through some very important involvement. You said church. I heard you're a singer.
Yes, I'm part of the men's choir.
You're part of the men's choir in the Catholic Church.
In Dennery.
In Dennery. And I think I recall that a priest was very happy at your involvement in the politics, that he said so.
Doing a lot in Dennery.
You know, my ears, I think that it's my duty.
Very good.
Yes, and also the manager of a football club? Is that
president of the All Blacks Veterans Club.
Okay.
Which I have been the president for more than 30 years.
Wow.
A very long time, and I'm still the president.
And do you play?
Yes, I play football at a veterans level, but you know, now that I am getting a little older, I am leaving it for other persons who are much younger to participate. But I still play a very important role in terms of my sports. On a Sunday, the guys would gather on the playing field on a Sunday afternoon. I would still be playing my football.
Very nice. So
yes.
you have...
And I love it and I enjoy it, and I don't think becoming a candidate will stop me from participating.
Very nice. And I think the residents would have a problem if you stopped also.
Definitely.
Okay, so apart from your community involvement, you have been a forestry officer. Do I have that right?
Yes, forestry officer.
A forestry officer. And for those of us who don't know, can you tell us a little more about your profession and how it's married with your constituency, with the Dennery Basin at that?
Okay, I just want to start by saying that I became a forestry officer in October 1986.
Oh, very nice.
So I served in the public service for 34 years.
34 years, so you have an anniversary.
After gaining employment as a young forestry officer, I proceeded to participate in a forest ranger training program in Trinidad. That's in 1990, 1991. Following that, in 1993-95, I pursued a diploma program in general forestry at the same institution in Trinidad and Tobago. And in 2003, I went on to pursue my degree in general forestry at the University of Guyana.
Okay.
Upon my return, I was promoted to Forest Research Officer in a forestry department. That was in 2012, where I was directing research activities in the forestry department. In 2014, I was appointed the Assistant Chief Forestry Officer. March of 2015, promoted to the Deputy Chief Forestry Officer, and in 2019 June, I was appointed the Chief Forestry Officer until my retirement in 2020 June.
Wow. So you were literally a career. Your whole career was around forestry.
Forestry.
And exactly what does a forestry officer do? And well, you literally left the service at the top of your field.
Yes.
So what did that entail?
Well, I must say St. Lucia has almost 25 acres of forest reserve.
Okay.
And that is lands that are considered protected. There are laws governing the management and protection of those lands. And my role was really to help protect and manage those resources. So it entails establishments of forest plantations in various degraded parts of the country. It entails maintenance of the forest reserve boundaries. And in our the structure we had in the forestry department was about 5 geographic locations. So initially when I started, I was responsible for the management of the Dennery area.
Okay.
So I was involved in reforestation, in plantation work, in sale of forest produce. I was involved in working with the farmers in terms of agroforestry projects. So it entails a lot of various operations that are geared towards the management and protection of our resource.
Okay, you said
very exciting.
You said it's the sale of forest produce, and my mind went to Christmas. Are you guys responsible for selling the Christmas trees in the pine trees for Christmas?
Well, it's not pine trees; it's called Christmas trees.
It's Christmas trees. Okay.
The Department of Forestry was engaged in that activity many years ago. But when I became the Assistant Chief Forestry Officer, this was one of my responsibilities to privatize the Christmas tree production, because we felt that it was time that we placed the production of the Christmas trees in the hands of private individuals as a form of livelihood support. So whereas forestry many years ago was involved in the growing of the trees and the sale of the trees to the public around Christmas time, we decided that it was a time to place it in private hands. So we have a few private individuals who are right now doing the cultivation and marketing and sale of the Christmas trees. And this is why forestry is not involved in the sale of it anymore. But when I speak to forest produce, I refer to Christmas trees as one, but we have sale of trees, we have sale of vines, and all of those produce that comes from the forest. So when I speak to forest produce, I refer to that.
Okay, great.
In addition to the Christmas trees.
Okay, good. I think that's probably the only thing I've ever purchased from forestry department. But in terms of, you said you were responsible for the Dennery Basin. Is that how you have become so popular in addition to your community involvement?
Yes, very true, because the area that I covered started from Bexon, the lower part of the Badlil, and it ended all the way in an area called Pralin Bridge.
Okay.
And this means that that entire forest estate, from the Badlil all the way through Dennery, Mabio Valley into Pralin, I was responsible for that. So it meant that I was involved in a number of communities, which included places like the Mabio Valley, Dennery, Pralin, the Badlil, and all those persons had to come to one main office for service. And those services include things like chainsaw registration, requests for permits for transportation of produce along our highways, requests for assistance in terms of plants, requiring plants for planting on the farms. So that caused me to become engaged with a number of persons. Even just before I retired, I was the one responsible for purchasing tree crops at the Union Nursery for most of our farmers in the Dennery Valley and the Dennery Village. Wow. So that has really caused me to be connected to those people. And this is why I think I am so well known in the area of Dennery South, and even by extension Dennery North.
Okay, so that brings me to a good way to get into the politics. So, I mean, it sounds like you had a really good career, something that you enjoyed doing, and you also know how to, again, make money from privatizing your skill and some of the services offered. So then why politics?
That's a very good question, Mundi. And a number of persons have asked me that question in the past. But for me, it is because of my love for my community, the love for my people, especially the people of Dennery South, and how much my contribution can continue impacting on their lives. So with the experience I gained in the leadership, of the Forestry Department and my 34 years of service, I felt that after retirement, there was something more to offer. Because I'm certainly sure, Monday, when you look at me, I don't look like 55.
I don't. I would
so
never admit it. Or even no.
I felt at this time that there was more that I wanted to offer to the people of Dennery South, and I think that is what that really caused me to take that decision to become a candidate, because of my passion for the people of Dennery South. I want the people of Dennery South to come together. I want the people of Dennery South to avoid that division that exists between the two parties. And it's my role, if I'm ever selected to become the next parliamentary rep for Dennery South, to bring everybody together, to bring people, both from a UWP side, SLP side, bring everybody together to work in the interest of the development of Dennery South. And this is why I felt that, based on my leadership skills, there was a lot more I could offer. And I felt that this is the direction that I should take to continue making that contribution for my constituency.
Very nice. So your announcement has been well received then by the
very
people
well
of Dennery
received.
South.
I'm very confident. I'm very happy. I am feeling the vibes on the ground, and I'm just waiting for that day, for the results to become a reality.
Great. So in your conversations with persons from Dennery South, what do you hear? What do you hear as the needs of the people from Dennery South?
In Dennery South, there are so many different needs, so many of them. When I go to the constituency, I listen to the people, I hear the cries, I hear the concerns, I listen to the concerns. There are so many of them, and I can speak to land issues where persons feel that they have been occupying lands that does not belong to them and they do not have ownership of it. I hear the cries of the fishermen.
Yes.
The fishermen who go out at sea every day, but when they return to the ports, they have to think of how to sell their fish. I hear the cries of the farmers who has to spend so much time on their farm, but when they harvest the produce, they have marketing issues. I hear the cries of the single mothers, around school, the opening of school books, school supplies, fees that they need to ensure that the children go to school. The elderly, when I walk and visit their homes, you see it in their eyes, the deplorable conditions that they face. There are so many of them, but the one that really struck me every time, the one that really concerns me every time, our young people.
Yes.
The hundreds of young people from Dennery South and the rest of St. Lucia who leave school on an annual basis, but they have no means of getting permanent employment. And it is my role, if I'm given an opportunity to serve, to help those young people. They need help. And what I want to do is to give them that skill set that they require to prepare them for the job market. to help them transform those skills into entrepreneurship, business. I want to see more of our young people become their own boss. And there are also other opportunities for them, you know. Through sports, we can encourage those persons to get to university where they participate in sports activities, but at the same time they become professionals. They may be doctors, they may be lawyers, they may be nurses, they may be pilots. And so this is my concern in terms of the young people. And the good thing about the St. Lucia Labour Party, it's about pushing what we call this youth economy.
Definitely.
So all of that is going to encourage the young people to be part of a team, that would be part of a ministry, that would be involved in managing their own affairs for a ministry that is going to be set up for those persons. You know, imagine Monday I've been talking to coaches and sponsors and so on as I speak. I have already been in discussion with some of them to see how we can get some of those young persons to go to universities.
Yes.
You know? Just think about it. We have, going to the next level, we're talking about the Dennery segment.
Oh,
I'm sure you know the Dennery segment.
Oh, yes.
These guys have gone viral with their music. They have placed St. Lucia on the map throughout the world. But they need support.
Yes.
They need to, that product development, they need to, you know, get into the whole product development and marketing of their
But would you know, and I know some of these things, when you're talking about scholarships for athletes, when the St. Lucia Labour Party was in power in 2011, 2016, and we had the first ever ministry designed for youth development and sports, Honorable Sean Edward, we had a designated scholarship desk.
Yes, I remember that.
That was, you know, charged with sourcing scholarships, and whether it is through government assistance, get young, talented athletes over to university.
Yes.
So I'm very happy to see that, you know, you're on that same wavelength.
I'm telling you, Monday, this is very important for young people.
Yes.
And I'm going to do my very best to ensure that it happens. Because our young people need help. Our young people, you know, needs a future. And this is how we can do it. And I'm very, very optimistic that once I am given that opportunity to serve, it will happen.
Yeah,
I'm very happy.
I mean, you said you didn't say you were no longer youth, you're in the Veterans League now, but you seem very attuned to the needs of the young people. Is it that you meet with them a lot? And I also know that your campaign team is quite young also.
Yes, I interact with them all the time, and it's not now. I mean, very early in life, I have been involved in sports. I have been involved in a number of areas where the young people are involved. And I'm just saying this to let you know that I've been involved in jazz, I've been involved in managing the tourist stop facilities at Mandalay and by the fire station.
You keep keeping out on us. This is a prospect. And
I'm connected with the young people as well, you know. So this is why I understand what they go through, because I was once in the situation, in the position. When I left secondary school in 1980, I went straight into agriculture to pursue a 2-year program at the St. Lucia School of Agriculture at Union.
Okay.
And this is where I afterwards I got employed with the Forestry department, because I had the skill that was required to make it happen. But a lot of our young people are suffering as a result of the lack, this skill set that they lack, which does not give them an opportunity to move to the next level. And this is what is going to be my main priority if given an opportunity to serve as the next MP for Dennery South.
Very nice. St. Lucia, this is the first segment of Chill and Chat with the endorsed candidate, Mr. Alfred Starbatch Prospere for Dennery South. And we've heard a lot from him, a lot of his plans for the people of Dennery South. But stay tuned. We have to go for a quick break. We'll be right back. Welcome back, St. Lucia. I'm your host, Mondi Lewis, for Chill and Chat. Again, I have the endorsed candidate for Dennery South, Mr. Alfred Starbatch Prospere. Mr. Prospere, when we left off, we were having a very exciting discussion about the plans for Dennery South, your interaction with people, especially the young people. But now let's broaden the discussion to what's happening in St. Lucia and how you have played a part in said development. So for those who are just joining us, we were speaking about your role as the Chief Forestry Officer. And you said, again, it speaks to a lot of biodiversity, produce, safeguarding the environment. We heard a lot of discussions about climate change, well, before Trump. But we understand the implications of climate change for small island developing states like St. Lucia. Where do you think we're at in that discussion and even in practice?
Thank you very much, Monday. That's a very good question, and this has been so close to my heart because I was directly involved in climate change issues when I was a forestry officer. And as a matter of fact, I was the focal point for St. Lucia on what you call the United Nations Convention to Combat Desertification. Okay. So that is one of three main conventions. So we have the Climate Change Convention, we have the Biodiversity Convention, and we have the UNCCD, which is the Desertification Convention.
So I served on their team
for about 4 or 5 years before I retired.
Wow.
But in terms of climate change, it's a natural phenomenon that has been a problem globally. And we've heard of the negative impacts it has on almost every country in the world.
Yes.
But for small island developing states like St. Lucia, the impact is more severe or negative, if you want to call it, because one, our geographic area and our small size. Compounding that is that most of these Caribbean small island states are within what we call the hurricane belt. So every year, very often we have major natural disasters like flooding and hurricanes, and that impacts very negatively on our forest resource, for example, our water resources. And I'm sure you will remember in 2010 when we had Hurricane Thomas.
Oh yes.
We had major damage to our forest reserve.
Yes.
We estimated during that time more than 500 hectares of lands were destroyed in our forest reserve.
Wow.
And the forestry department, through the government of St. Lucia, we had a major forest restoration drive. Now, when people speak of, me hear the term forest restoration, they will be wondering, what is that?
Yes.
But it's basically restoring the forest to what it was like in terms of areas that were degraded. You would go in and do planting of trees, you may do broadcasting of seeds, all in an effort to reduce the level of soil erosion. So climate change is happening, and we've been hearing about sea level rise, higher temperatures, higher rainfall.
Not hearing about it, feeling it.
Yes, and it is really a situation that is affecting countries like ours. And that's why you've been hearing the term forest resilience, you know, and that is why we have been doing strengthening our bridges. We are hearing about stabilizing our watersheds, rehabilitating our river banks. But, you know, as a forester, one concern I've always had, and it is about addressing the issues that confront us, but not doing it in an organized way. And I'll give you one example. For example, every year you see millions of dollars being spent to desilt our rivers, our drains. I'm sure if you go around the country now, you've seen it. And that is actually costing our government millions of dollars to remove silt from the rivers and the drains and to place them on the banks. But a forestry department that is responsible for conservation of our lands, we do not get these funds to help us address the problem at the source.
Yes.
So it makes no sense. Well, the Ministry of Infrastructure, I'm sorry, I'm not targeting any ministry, but I'm just saying millions of dollars are being spent every year. And I'm not saying that it's not necessary, it's necessary, because we have to do the silting if we want to alleviate the flooding problems. But why don't give the Forestry Department and the Ministry of Agriculture some of that money to address and tackle those problems at the source?
Because the silt is essentially soil.
From the interior.
that is
on the
being
slope,
washed
on
down.
the hillside
So
that
you
have been
need
washed
some
down because of
slope
the poor management
stabilization,
practices.
reforestation.
Exactly.
Okay. So,
You know, and
yeah,
what happens?
that makes sense.
Soon after the rainy seasons, most of that still goes back into the river. So it's like doing the same thing every year because you do not address the problems at the source. So back to climate change. So that is an important area of concern to me as a conservationist. And even as a country, we need to be concerned about that because it can really impact on life, property, infrastructure, you just name it. And that is why I am extremely concerned about our SDGs,
Yes.
what you call the Sustainable Development Goals. There are about 17 of them, and in 2015, St. Lucia signed on to that. And we have a responsibility to address each of those, all of the 17 goals. One thing I want to mention to you, there is goal 15 called Life on Land.
Okay.
And that is where my department was directly responsible. And it was really about approaching our conservation measures in a way to achieve what we call land degradation neutrality. Now you may ask me, I'm sure, what does that mean?
Yes.
But it's really establishing, in a nutshell, a balance between conservation and deforestation. So for example, if you are losing 5 acres of forest through degradation each year, and you are conserving at the same time 5 acres, there is a balance.
Balance, yes.
And so St. Lucia is one of 3 countries in the Caribbean that has established what we call land degradation neutrality targets.
Okay,
And
so
I was
we're balanced.
very instrumental in leading that process as the UNCCD focal point for St. Lucia. So now we are just in the process of getting cabinet approval for that. And as a result of the progress St. Lucia has made, we stand to receive millions and millions of dollars in funds to assist us in achieving this target.
Okay.
I was very much involved in that process, and I am hoping that we can continue to work towards getting St. Lucia to be a land degradation, to achieve land degradation neutrality by 2030.
Very nice. And you were speaking, I mean, in all the climate change talk you spoke about, and I think it's peaked to me because we hear of a lot of water issues during the dry season, and this time it was no different. And we know of the issues going on at the Roseau Dam, and I've been told about the issues with the tributaries,
Yes.
The rivers, a lot of ongoing issues. And I mean, it's water, especially in this COVID-19 era when people are being asked to wash and keep everywhere sanitized. How severe is that problem at the Roseau Dam, and how does St. Lucia address it?
Very good question, and I'm happy you asked this question because I just want to mention that the Roseau Dam was constructed mainly to supply water to the northern part of the island.
Oh.
I was very much involved in this project when we were clearing the lands to set up the dam. But what has happened to the Roseau Dam in recent years is that there is a heavy buildup of silt. When we were involved in the project proposal for the silting of the dam, the figure that was frequently mentioned was that the Roseau Dam currently has 3 million plus cubic meters of silt. And a lot of that silt came from the hinterlands, the upper slopes of the catchment, and it's as a result of poor land management happening up there. We are well aware that we have a lot of cultivation of the marijuana happening there. Persons were involved in cultivation of lands, and even natural disasters like Hurricane Thomas, Debbie, and all those storm events have caused a tremendous amount of silt to be deposited in the Roseau Dam. So now the government is attempting to seal this dam by removing the sill, because what it has done is it has reduced the capacity of the dam to hold the quantity of water that it should hold, because you have silt and large trees and parts of trees occupying the basin of the dam. So it's really a small amount of water occupying the upper part of that. And that is why I'm saying it's important for us to practice sustainable land management. Because our geographic area, we're a very mountainous country, we have lots of soil erosion, and especially at this time of year, high rainfall periods, we are definitely going to be experiencing more severe erosions, landslides, etc. One of the things that the Forestry Department did to help in restoring the catchment area was that under the CBD we got an approval of $166,000 to implement what we call a forest restoration project for the Roseau Dam catchment. And I was very instrumental in putting that work plan together. It was a 2-year project, and the target was for us to restore, rehabilitate, and reforest approximately 125 acres of lands above the catchment. Because it makes no sense removing the silt and not addressing the problem at the source. So the Forestry Department, through the Ministry of Agriculture, has attempted to do that. And so far, based on what I've heard, it has been very successful.
Okay, good job. And you were saying, I mean, a problem like that, I'm very attuned, affect the Dennery Basin heavily.
Yes.
I know Honorable Sean Edward and the party had secured the project,
Yes.
the water redevelopment project in Dennery North, and that was supposed to have alleviated some of the issues of water in that area. But you know, you're speaking to an issue that seems to be very pervasive, even in the north, in the south, chronic water shortages. So what do you think, and I know that this is your passion, and I know you're not in the area, but clearly, you know, I'm sticking a pin here for you, who will be the Minister for Sustainable Development. What would be, you know, I know you've said it in terms of reforestation, attacking the problem at the source. Are these things that you live by and you would want to see implemented?
Definitely there must be linkages between the Ministry of Agriculture and the Ministry of Infrastructure, because as I mentioned earlier, the Ministry of Infrastructure has most of the funds each year to do that. But I really wish we could do more engaging of private farmers, private landowners, because it's not about the Forestry Department and the Ministry of Agriculture to take responsibility only to focus on reforestation of government lands, the forest reserve. But we must work together with the private individuals who also have their parcels located in critical water catchments where we have, you know, where we source water for domestic use. So whilst we may have a water catchment, let's say in the Mabia Valley in Dennery Rivier, a lot of the lands in the immediate vicinity of this catchment is privately owned, as against government forest reserve being a lot on the upper section of the catchment. There is need for us to continue sensitizing the people in terms of the land management practices, all with the aim of reducing erosion and ensuring a consistent quantity and quality of water for all.
Okay, wow. I mean, your knowledge on the area is very vast, and you know, it's sometimes you wonder why a lot more isn't being done in terms of public awareness. It's always when, you know, we have water shortages, you hear of the issues. But you know, even telling St. Lucians about best practices for how we have
manage
sustainable
lands.
Manage lands. But you talk about managing, and you said earlier, you were speaking about managing, I guess, natural lands. You spoke about an issue with lands in the Dennery South in terms of home ownership. Is it that people didn't own property? You kind of skated around.
Oh yes, I was referring to a number of persons, because in Dennery we have lots of what we call crown lands, or government lands. but we also have a lot of lands belonging to the church vestry.
Okay.
And so a lot of persons have gone into squatting on those parcels, and they've built very huge houses, but they do not own the land.
Yes.
So for example, if you have a wall house, let's say in an area like La Pointe, you know, or Green Mountain, which belongs to the government, you would want to know that you own the lands, because if you want to, you know, have a mortgage, you know, the bank would ask you for ownership and so on. And even now, it is causing a bigger problem, because when I go to the constituency and I speak to some of the people, they are saying that they are looking for a water connection, but they must get permission because they don't own the lands, and because of that they are encountering problems. So I believe that just like our party when it introduced Proud, I think it is very important that we introduce Proud to Dennery, so we can have a land regularization program that would seek to address those long outstanding land issues that we face in Dennery South.
So is that a pervasive issue in Dennery South, this land issue? Because on the show last week, I know Wayne Gerard spoke about the land issue in ancillary canneries, and now here you...
It's a major issue in Dennery. We have lots of people, hundreds of people occupying government lands, and they have no ownership. But yet they occupy those lands. They have their house, and that's where they live, and it's not their fault. I mean, people have to get, you know, somewhere to live. So that is why I'm saying, in an effort to regularize it, there is an urgent need for us to introduce Proud in Dennery, so people can begin to feel that, you know, I have a huge investment where I constructed a house on government land, that some effort is being made to ensure that they get ownership of the land parcel that they occupy.
So now we're talking about two land issues. We're talking about, you know, land for conservation and land for
residential.
Residential land.
Now the conservation aspect is different. Our forest reserve is situated along the middle section of the island, if you want to call it. So we have a large portion of forest lands that are privately owned. So in total we have 35% of our total island forest.
Okay.
But government only owns about 15%. So that tells you about 20% of that belongs to private lands. But government does not have the resources to buy every piece of private property. So what we have to do is to work with them. There is a section of our Forest Act that speaks to land acquisition. So if you occupy a piece of land, let's say in the immediate vicinity of the Rosa Dam, and we see that this land is critical for conservation of the dam, we can recommend to government to acquire or to declare the protected area. But a lot of people, when they make the request, they want government to buy, but government most times don't have the resources to do that.
No, I mean, there are things that you can do, land swap, land swaps, you can get people to be caretakers of the environment and incentivize them.
Yes, very good.
So I mean, it's not something that is insurmountable. There's always the will of the government, right?
Yes, but the amount of the demands we're getting from people, the government, because I wish I could, you know, during my time as the chief forest officer, to acquire every piece of land that was in close proximity to our forest reserve, because that would be a very good way of us expanding our forest reserve to secure a more reliable quantity and quality of water. That we have to continue advocating to those private land owners to continue being mindful that the land parcel also plays a very significant role in water conservation. But what I really think we should do is to introduce what we call compensation for environmental services, where the landowners in the upper catchments that are critical to water conservation can get some kind of tax break or something that would encourage them to keep them on the forest.
Singsha, this has been a very, very insightful conversation and something that the whole world is talking about. And we have an expert in Mr. Prospere, endorsed candidate for Dennery South. But we'll take a break again and we'll come back to our last session to speak with Mr. Prospere. Stay tuned.
Welcome back to Chill and Chat St. Lucia. I'm your host, Mondi Lewis, and my guest, Mr. Alfred Starbatch Prospere of Dennery South. When we left you, we were having a very insightful conversation on climate change, building climate resilience, the SDGs, and I'm really saying, so we have an expert in Mr. Prospere. Again, you know, the substance of government is on this side. I will always say it, and the way the St. Lucia Labour Party chooses its candidates, you know, just a rich repository of information. But to close off that discussion, Mr. Prospere, do you think presently that St. Lucia, that the government is doing enough to secure us in terms of climate change, building our resilience?
This is a very good question, and I must say yes and no. Because I do not want to sound like I'm giving any one government praise. And I'm saying this because I know the St. Lucia Labour Party has been very much involved in working with the Ministry of Agriculture in terms of declaring private lands and many other critical lands adjacent to the forest reserve as forest reserve, and that was done when I was involved in a project to identify lands. But in terms of the conventions, I must say a lot of effort is being put into making sure that St. Lucia stick to its obligations of the conventions, and that I refer to attending the meetings on a regular basis and submission of the reports, doing the various assessments that, you know, the countries have to do, and in many cases preparing proposals for receipt of funding to undertake major projects. So I must say the government is working towards that, but I just need to see a little more, especially with regards to the sustainable development goals, because those goals are very, very important for us to achieve. Because if, for example, you speak to poverty alleviation, you speak to water quality, you speak to food security, that is so vital, so important to us as a nation. And I'm going back to the forestry aspect of it. If our lands are not well managed, then our supply of food will be limited. So I must say that an effort is being made, but there is more that I think should be done on the part of the government. Okay,
well, we'll have you soon enough.
Very good.
So I'm confident that the St. Lucia Labour Party will continue on the path which it really did, I feel, pioneered whilst in office.
Yes, definitely.
Okay, great.
Definitely, Monday.
So we're going to have a little fun now in what I call the quick fire session. So St. Lucia, we will just get some insight into Mr. Prospere, you know, some quick questions, and we require some rapid responses. Okay?
No problem.
So first question, who's the one person who changed your life?
I think there are many persons who would have had that effect, you know, but I think the person who has done that is my wife, because she has been there with me for thick and thin. She has been supporting me in this venture. She has been the one that has always been at my side, and she has been the one providing me with the energy and the strength to go out there on a day-to-day to meet the people. So I must say it is my wife.
Oh, very good. Thank you, wife. What gives you hope?
Hope. The one thing I think that gives me hope, Monday, is our young people. And I expounded on this earlier in terms of my concern for them. And I really think with the young people, there is always a future. So for me, what really gives me hope is our young people.
Okay, finish the sentence. What St. Lucia needs now is
direction.
Okay. Direction.
And this direction that we need must come from someone who has the leadership qualities And I see this in no other person at this time than our Honorable Philip J. Pierre. He's a man of experience. He's one that we can trust. And given the situation that our country is in now, I am confident that he is the one person at this current time that can take us in this direction that our country needs to go.
Okay, great. I was going to ask you why Philip J. Pierre for Prime Minister, but you answered that question for me. Our next question is, what do you want to be remembered for?
That is a very good question. Do I want to be remembered for anything? I think it's about my passion, my love for the people of Dennery South. I want to be remembered for that person who is always involved in the community, who is always willing to help the people, because I understand the struggles. I have been part of the struggles. I understand what they go through, and I really wish that I can be part of helping those persons in Dennery South change their lives, make a complete change in their lives. And it is really about my passion for helping people and making their lives better. Because in Dennery South, as I mentioned earlier, there are a number of challenges that needs attention. The social problems that confront us on a day-to-day. I must say those problems need urgent attention, and I really think with me contributing in ensuring that we change lives, or we help the people in a way that can change lives. I think that is what I really think I should be remembered for.
Very good. You spoke about social issues, economic issues, but if there was just one issue that you could tackle when you became MP, what would that be?
Simple and easy to respond to is the youth unemployment in Dennery South. That has been a serious concern to me, and I'm certainly sure that given the opportunity, this is one major problem that will be high priority on my list of things to do.
Okay. What keeps you up at night? Besides the late outings besides the late outings on the ground.
What keeps me up at night a lot, I must say. When you just getting ready to sleep and you're on your bed and you hear these mosquitoes, ringing around your that really keeps me up at night. But on a serious issue, I think what really keeps me up is unresolved issues, especially issues that you probably do not have or did not have an opportunity to solve. So you may have gone into the constituency and somebody come up to you with a certain issue that you really want to assist or help resolve, but unfortunately because of constraints, it may be financial, it may be material, it may be other things that may have made it difficult to resolve. This is one of the things that I know would trouble me a lot, before falling asleep.
Okay.
So I think it's really about unresolved issues that I cannot address at this time.
You could have been enjoying your retirement, but you have chosen to enter politics. So why the St. Lucia Labour Party?
Simple answer. It is because the St. Lucia Labour Party is a party for the people and of the people. The St. Lucia Labour Party puts people first. And under the St. Lucia Labour Party, I want everyone in Dennery South and St. Lucia at large to prosper with Prospere.
Okay, very nice. And the final question, very easy. Journée Creole or Carnival?
I like both.
Oh, really?
Oh, yes, I love my Carnival. I love
did
my
not know that.
Creole because, every year I used to be not directly involved in Carnival in terms of the jumping up and so on, but I would find myself in car streets,
Okay, I learned something today. I learned something
But I've
today.
never gotten directly involved. But I don't know why I have a bias to Jeune Creole,
Okay.
because of the historical significance of Jeune Creole. I have a bias towards Jeune Creole. So if I have to select one of the two, I would go for Jeune Creole.
Okay, great. St. Lucia, thank you for joining me on another Chill and Chat. Mr. Alfred Prospere, thank you for being my guest. And all the best as you continue on the campaign trail for elections. Any final words to the people of
I just
Dennery
want to thank you for having me. And it really afforded me an opportunity to speak to my plans for Dennery South. A lot of persons have been saying that, we've not seen you, we've not heard of your plans, you need to get to the media. And I was very happy today that I was able to do that. So I'm hoping that, most of, if not all of the constituents will, by the time they listen to this interview, would understand what are my plans for Dennery South. And I just want to leave by saying to all the residents of Dennery South that I am not in this thing for color. It's about everybody in Dennery South. It is not about the St. Lucia Labour Party supporters or the United Workers Party supporters. I want everybody in Dennery South to be part of that train. That I want you to be part of it, because we have to make Dennery South a better place, and we have to do it together. Let's come together, all my constituents of Dennery South, and ensure that you are part of a team that will transform Dennery into the future.
Okay. Thank you again, St. Lucia. That's it. And thank you for joining me on another Chill and Chat from the St. Lucia Labour Party. Thank you, NBC. Have a good evening.